The game has always been sufficient in describing this one. It's Ohio State, it's Michigan in Ann Arbor for a 119th time. Rarely, though, have the battle lines been drawn to this degree so decisively and with so much going on regarding this game, this matchup, these programs, and this showdown. We got Steve Deace here from Michigan Podcast. If you're not aware, and I'm guessing that just about all of you are, Michigan Podcast every week with Steve in the Bigger Ten as well for just the very best in Michigan football and the Big Ten coverage. Steve, how are you today?
I'm doing well, brother. It's kind of funny and fitting. We come here to the end of a tradition as we have known it all of our lives, given what's coming in college football next year. And I guess it's only fitting that at the end of this era, this is probably the game that has the greatest stakes, both in terms of this season and future seasons for both programs simultaneously. So kind of fitting. If we're doing this 12 months from now, all these teams would be doing is fighting for seeding in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to be headed first, because I think that's been largely lost by many, is that this is the end of an era in terms of this game being so monumental and paramount to the conclusion of a season, to a championship run, that we go to a 12-team playoff. And will this game be extremely important? Will there still be the vitriol between the fan bases? Of course, none of that's going to go away in regards to the emotion and the pride and the bragging rights. But if these two teams are going to see each other the next week or a month later, or maybe both, it's certainly just never, ever going to be the same.
No. Now you look at Duke, North Carolina in college basketball. That's the closest that sport has to this. And I mean, the shine is never off of that. That is still a national event every time it takes place. But except for when they met in the Final Four 2 years ago, it's been a long time. The ACC, got rid of only one team went to the NCAA tournament, and that's if you won the conference tournament, well over 40 some odd years ago. So it's been a long time since there was the opportunity for one of those schools to end or wreck the other school's season. And, that happened when they finally, after all these years, they finally met in a Final Four just a couple of years ago. For Michigan and Ohio State, that has been a regular occurrence. The opportunity for one school to end effectively or wreck effectively the other team's season, to get to the end. And if you're one of the schools or both of them, to navigate, the topsy-turvy road of a college football season and get to the last game, to have everything to play for, and to have your rival, your equal waiting there for you, either fighting for the same stakes or taking great pleasure in harming your ability to finish your mission. That is what's unique. That is what Duke, North Carolina does not have. That's not even what Army and Navy has. Alabama and Auburn have it a little bit, being in the same division, but Alabama has been so superior in the Nick Saban era that some of that has been lost. It's been rare. If you look at the history of that rivalry, it is rare that they are both really good at the exact same time. It happens, but not a lot. And it's been common here in Michigan and Ohio State. Now, that being said, it's been a rivalry of streaks. Even when both teams have been good simultaneously, it's been a rivalry of streaks. But the final opportunity to be the reason why your rival views their entire season to be empty calories, to have been largely a waste of time, that has been so emblematic and foundational and fundamental to this rivalry going back generations, that is coming to an end Saturday.
Yeah, Duke, North Carolina, different sport. We're used to home and home series in basketball, and then a conference tournament in which the two have rarely met, from my recollection, in the conference tournament, but it's still always there and always possible. Whereas this was it was one game per year, and that's it. is there a best way for the Big Ten to approach this going forward to try to keep this as sacred as possible? But you still have to decide a championship, and these are still the two best programs. And then we've got a playoff where if things continue on this trend line, these are two of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country.
No, there really is no way to do it. I've heard suggestions. How about making it the first game of the year? So all of the offseason is built to that. But I think that the goal is nowadays to get as many teams into the playoffs as possible. I don't know that you want to front load a schedule like that with such a big game. So that's the only thing I could think of is if every year it was the first Big Ten game of the year, like week 0 every year, at the end of August, that kind of dead week, and you have an entire off season of buildup. But even then, you still have the rest of your year to rebound from that. I don't think people understand. We're going to be sitting here next year, and there are going to be 9-3 teams that are going to be firmly in the mix for playoff berths, particularly given the strengths of the conferences now that you're going to see in the top 3 leagues, especially the SEC, Big Ten, and to a lesser degree the Big 12. But now you're getting rid of Texas and Oklahoma, but you're adding Arizona State, Utah. The depth of that league will be superior to what it was before. The top of it won't be as good, but the depth of it will be better. I mean, there are going to be 9-3 teams from the Big Ten and the SEC in this playoff every single year. And that will take some getting used to. When college basketball for many, many years, people have argued is, since when UCLA played dominated with John Wooden, only one team per conference made the tournament. So were they always playing a field of the best of the best? Well, some years, I remember one year Maryland and NC State were 1-2 in the country, played for the ACC tournament championship. NC State won. Maryland lost. Maryland was out. Now you're facing a situation where when the college basketball democratized and opened up, we didn't have the social media and the 24-hour sports that we do today. And so there wasn't kind of a sense of how much different things were going to be. But this time next year, when we are debating, not which, but how many 9-3 teams get to play for the national championship, that will be something. Hell, we have not had a 2-loss team in the 14 playoff, for goodness sake. So, I mean, there's only been one time since Minnesota in the 30s that a 2-loss team has won a national championship. That was LSU back in 2007. So this is going to be a lot. This is going to be an undiscovered country for college football fans this time next year.
Super chat comments and questions are welcome, folks. Otherwise, I rarely get Steve on my terms, so I get to pick his brain. So I will certainly take advantage. But you have the opportunity with super chat comments and questions, and we get one in from David Greenshield. Guys, is this bigger than 2006? Logistically, no, because 2006 was obviously the direct gateway to a BCS national championship game. The winner has to go through Iowa. The winner has to be selected to a playoff, which will obviously happen as a Big Ten champion. But I would say no, not logistically, but in regards to what you alluded to off the top, Steve, in regards to the course of this rivalry and the status of these programs and what's at stake possibly going forward, I would say yes in that regard.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of stuff we don't know yet about the Michigan story. And, are we dealing with message board legends or things of fact? I can tell you on the Michigan side of things, there is an absolute intent to figure out how much Ohio State was involved in this as soon as this offseason ends. I think that will be a focal point of Michigan media in this offseason. There was, without question, an amount of heads up. At the very least, there was an amount of heads up that Ohio State media seemingly knew what Pete Thamel was going to write before even Adam Rittenberg and Bruce Feldman did. At the very least, that's true. We don't know why. Maybe they just uniquely have a tie into Pete Thamel's, editing budget, but the budget with the editor there at ESPN. Maybe it's something else. But why do I bring that up here? What's happening right now is, for the first time, I think that there's never really been a period of time that Michigan has hated Ohio State as much as Ohio State hates Michigan. It's just, and by the way, I bemoan that. Okay. But Michigan just isn't wired that way as a fan base, as a university. If Ohio State has cultic levels of zealous obsession in its fan ranks, Michigan has sanctimonious, insufferably sanctimonious levels of arrogance in it. And now what's happened over the last month or two, I am sensing something that from the Michigan side, I've just never sensed before. There's always been a thought, with rare occurrence, Woody tearing the banner down in 73. It got very chippy in 2019. One of our players, I remember, tried to twist J.K. Dobbins in a pile and took his shoe off. But, and I think in 2007, there was some chirping between the two teams there. But by and large, there was that one Ohio State player got ejected, I want to say, in 2013. But by and large, despite how heated this thing has been, it's the respect level's kind of been up here. And I don't know that will be the case for the foreseeable future. I think that this is going to turn much more personal, much more nasty. And I don't know what Bo or Woody would have to say about it, frankly. But it'll be different for sure. And I think that will change as well. And I think that's going to start this Saturday.
Steve, it must be in the water in the Buckeye State, because I got to say, I did not grow up in a sports family or a football family. Now, that soon changed when I came along, and for whatever reason, it just captivated me. Sports, competition, the structure, the organization, the history, all of it. Just 8 years old, I'm locked in. And my first taste of Ohio State, Michigan was Bo Schembechler riding off on his players' shoulders in Columbus in 1976. And as an 8-year-old, I had my fist like inches from the TV screen, just in anger. And I don't even know where that came from. Like, that was not taught to me. That was my first football season. I didn't even take in the entire football season leading up to that. And it was already ingrained in me from somewhere.
Yeah, that's just not a Michigan thing. I mean, we'd sell, how I hate Ohio State gear and all that kind of stuff. But I got to tell you, it's just not, a lot of our greatest players came from Ohio. Two of our coaches either coached or played at Ohio State, and Gary Moeller, and Bo Schembechler was Woody Hayes' offensive coordinator, for goodness sakes, and I just, it's not really been the same. And there have been certain turning points where Michigan knew that it needed something drastic to turn the tide. You go back to, Bo's first year in 1969, Lloyd's first year in 1995, when, Biaka Batuka had the 300-yard rushing effort. 2021 would be one of them. But those have been inflection points or Malcolm Gladwell tipping points, meaning that Michigan's place in the rivalry and vis-a-vis broader college football was existentially threatened. And so it was because of that on a temporary level, Michigan matched Ohio State's obsession with this game. But, on a perennial basis, we just don't. And that's been to our own detriment, I should say. Michigan used to say when I was growing up, we have Notre Dame every year. We have Michigan State every year. We play Minnesota almost every year. We've, and we got other rivalries. It's a huge rivalry when we play them. But I think that is not the case right now. And I think that started in 2021. And I think right now is the closest I can ever remember Michigan fans, in at least as far as I can recall. I mean, we didn't have message boards and stuff in the 80s and 90s. This is the closest I can remember Michigan fans matching the level of disdain that is usually more reserved for Bucknuts. Like Ohio State's never had to worry about coming up here for a game and the water being turned off. That's happened in Michigan multiple times. There was the one year Jim Tressel snuck the search dogs on us, okay, ostensibly for national security. That stuff Michigan would just see. I would do that stuff. I'm not hating Ohio State for it. I'm disdainful that Michigan will not return the fire. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened for the first time ever this weekend. I would not be shocked at all. And Michigan has been loath to match that, views itself as above it all. I don't think that it feels that way right now.
When I was first hired at ESPN, one of my main trainers was a Michigan fan. And yes, he stated to me that it was good that Michigan lost the 2001 game because he said, it's good that you guys should win a game once in a while. And it's not that big a deal because it's really not that huge of a rivalry. And I just, my jaw was on the floor and I just couldn't imagine I could have Ohio State win 80 years in a row and the 81st game would still mean just as much.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, I heard from several Ohio State contacts I have that are, fans of my day show. When Michigan won in 2021, they hated it, but they were glad they made it a rivalry game. That only lasted 1 year, though. Yeah.
Christopher Williams, thank you for the contribution. 2024 Ohio State, Michigan, 2 or 3 times a year. Yes, we pretty much covered that ground, Christopher. Anything else to add to that, Steve?
I think there is the immediate futures of both programs are on the line this weekend. I do. I can't envision Ryan Day returning if he can't beat a team with no coach. I can't. I mean, I mean, especially you have the mother of all distractions and takedowns. You may or may not be proven later to have your own hand involved in it. I know Michigan's convinced that it is, and they're going to turn over every rock to confirm that. So we'll find out one way or the other. But I mean, you're going to have Michigan not have a coach, and you're going to lose to that team. I mean, I can't imagine he stays. I can't. I could absolutely see this being a situation where great time to Chargers have a all-pro quarterback. They need a coach there. Maybe Andy Reid retires. Justin Fields sitting over there in Chicago, and then they've got the top 2 picks in the draft next year. Good time for you, Ryan, to maybe bid adieu. I cannot see him returning. In fact, I think in the history of this rivalry, the only coach who's ever kept his job losing 3 in a row to Michigan is John Cooper. I think that's the only time that's ever happened. And so you're going to lose 3 in a row, and then the third one is a team with no coach. I don't believe he'll survive. And I absolutely think the future is up in the air for Michigan as well. And this was always going to be the case. It'll get billed as the current controversy. But going into this season, there was always a sense of a last dance kind of a thing. And there was always a sense that that Jim would absolutely take an NFL job if he could get one after winning the Big Ten and beating Ohio State 3 times in a row. I mean, that was very openly discussed in Michigan media and online communities heading into the year. We ended up getting here by a strange twist of fate. And if Sharon Moore goes out there and beats Ryan Day on Saturday, he'll be the next Michigan football coach. If not, then I think, I think that this thing could become and that's in a way, this is like 2018 in reverse. Urban Meyer was very besieged with controversy that year. He was suspended. And that ended up being his last year. Kind of Ohio State said, good time to go, basically. And we got your successor waiting in the wings anyway, who's more offensively minded than you are. Kind of the same thing in reverse, really, And if you remember that year, Ohio State should have lost to Maryland the week before. A guy just dropped a 2-point conversion that would have won that game. And then Michigan would have just clinched the Big Ten East right there without even having to go to Columbus and win. I think Michigan was a 4-point favorite in that game, just like they are in this game. It's almost the exact reverse of 2018. I absolutely think Michigan's immediate future will be up in the air, win or lose. I just think if Michigan wins, it'll delay it until after till January. If Michigan loses, I think the speculation about Michigan's future will be a big story starting next week, early as next week.
Even if Ryan Day chooses to stay at Ohio State, he's going to get fired if they lose Saturday.
Yeah, I don't believe you can lose 3 in a row to Michigan, and the third time is they don't have a coach. I cannot. You have a new AD coming in as well. You tell me, man, but I can't even imagine what your fan base and boosters will do if he goes there and loses to a team with no freaking coach. Okay. No freaking coach, and you lose to them. Okay.
I can't imagine them firing a coach who's winning 90% of his games. That would be a first in the history of college football.
It's Ohio State, man. You've won like 83% of your games since the 50s. So there's a lot of coaches that could do that at Ohio State. I don't know. You fire a guy as much as you say, hey, Chargers are looking good. Give him a call. Okay. I do not believe if Ryan Day loses on Saturday, he will be coaching Ohio State next year. I don't.
Okay. While we're on the coaching portion of this, Jim Harbaugh's not going to be on the sideline. He's with his team. I don't know at what point he has to leave his team, if it's for the entire day each Saturday or
he
what
just cannot be at the stadium, is my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much has that impacted this team? How differently have they played the last 2 weeks because of that?
Well, I really think you have to take the Penn State game and throw that out. That's a unique situation. Penn State's defense is absolutely terrific. Ohio State struggled to block them too. And we figured out, and Sharon figured out, I've got a lead. I'm just going to sit here and wait for James Franklin and make some, game day faux pas. And he did, kept going for 2, going for it on 4th and 6 from his own 30. All right. So I think you have to take that game in arguably the toughest environment in our league, Happy Valley, and just throw that out as a one-off. I'm much more concerned about what I saw last week. And I want to say a lot of it was Michigan was up 21-3, should have been up 30-10 at the half, and JJ threw a bad pick. And then it was just kind of a loss of focus and a letdown. It was kind of similar to last year against Illinois, remember? Michigan, people forget, even though Michigan needed to kick that field goal at the end, Michigan was in control of that game in the first half. They scored on the opening drive. They're in control of the game. They're going down at the end of this first half to score again, and that's when Blake got hurt and they got stuffed. Okay, and then they kind of didn't recover from that until the very last drive of the game. So, I'm a little concerned. Here's my biggest concern is in the 3 games this year when Sharon Moore has been head coach, offensive coordinator, and offensive line coach. Now, I would imagine if those 3 jobs are really easy to do, universities would just save money and not hire 3 different people to do them. Fair? Think that's fair? A fair assumption, probably?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So he's doing all 3. And in the 3 games where he has done all 3 of those, we have had by far our worst 3 offensive outputs of the season. 2 of them we had less than 300 yards. The most we had was the 312 yards against Bowling Green. JJ's QBR in those 3 games is 55.9 on average. The rest of the year, it's 91.9. So I am concerned that we have put way too much on Sharon Moore's plate. I don't see any other game management issues. The game against Bowling Green was very sloppy, and there was a lot of game management issues. The last 2 weeks, there have not been, we had to call a couple timeouts with the play clock running down at Penn State. Everybody has to do that at Penn State, given that environment. The team has not looked, out of the ordinary. I am concerned. I think something's wrong with Carson Barnhart. I mean, he's basically been a swinging gate. The first time I was like, well, that's Chop Robinson. He's a top 10 pick in the draft next year. Same thing happened against Maryland on Saturday, and they don't have guys. They're going to be the top 10 pick in the draft next year, So I'm wondering if maybe he's banged up because he's having a hard time getting leverage and pass protection whatsoever. But overall, the team is healthier than it was at this time last year overall.
So let's get back to JJ. He's obviously not performing well in addition to the overall offensive woes the last couple of weeks, and then going back to Bowling Green, his worst game. But you got to think that it's more than just whatever plays are being called, because I just can't imagine that Jim Harbaugh's fingerprints aren't all over this game plan
You're
and
right.
whatever the approach is going into the game.
Well, JJ still had a QBR against Penn State well over 90. It's just, again, Michigan just realized, why risk giving them a cheap score with that pass rush if they can't score on us? We're the ones that have the lead. They ran just a four corners offense. I don't fault them for that at all. There was a hit that he took in Penn State. You go back and watch that game, you can see he was pretty gimpy after that hit. And I do think that lingered well into this week. You could see that they were he didn't run at all, not one time against Maryland. At least not by design is what I mean. There were a couple times he had to scramble to do it. But remember, he was not good against Illinois last year either. And there was nothing that JJ had put on film the last month of the year. Michigan kept trying to work on the passing game, kept trying to fix it, kept trying to develop it for Ohio State, and it just would not take off. There was nothing that JJ had put on film the month leading up to the game last year that indicated he was going to perform the way that he did in Columbus without Blake Corum. But he did.
Jackson, thank you for the contribution. Jackson says, my theory is that Ohio State is in the playoffs regardless of the results, but Michigan needs to win a home game this Saturday. What do you think?
Well, I don't think there's any question Michigan will get no benefit of the doubt from the committee. So Michigan has to win. And as a Michigan fan, I'm okay with that. I mean, okay. I mean, that kind of should be the stakes for everybody, in my view. With Ohio State, I just think if they lose, now you're Oregon or Washington will be in. That's one spot. Michigan, if you lose to them, will be in. That's two spots. Georgia or Alabama will be in. And if Alabama wins, they will both be in. So I don't foresee a scenario where Ohio State's going to need a lot of help to get in with a loss. Going to need Texas to lose. They're going to need a lot of help. I think, to get in with a loss. I do think their chance of getting in. I think Michigan's are 0. Yeah. I put Ohio State's chances like 15%.
Yes, if that. I'm right there in the same place. I don't think it's similar to last year's situation, because Ohio State had the best record in the country of anyone who did not win a conference. So they were the clear choice at number 4, but we've got such a log jam of like 7 teams right now. You didn't even mention Texas. There's just way too many teams in their way. And that Notre Dame game is a nice win for a college football playoff ranking budge, but that's not like a overwhelming, this team has to be in the playoffs because they won at Notre Dame by a yard. So I do not see that. Cody, just wanted to say, I love it when you two get together and talk college football.
Thank you, man.
And you can finish the line there from Cody.
I can't see it. What's it say? Oh, go blue. Yes, I got you.
There it is. There it is from Cody.
Go blue.
Thank you, Cody. Appreciate that. We've got Rose, who says, Michigan man, wet dream as we get rid of Coach Day. He's 56-6 in 6 years. Jim is 85-25 in almost 10 years. 2-5 again in this game. Why fire Day other than dumb fans?
Actually, I don't. If we go 3-0 against Ryan Day, I don't give a shit if you guys keep him forever. Pardon my French. You can. What do I care? I only care what Ryan Day record is against Michigan. I'm not an Ohio State fan, so his record against every other team is irrelevant to me. I mean, if you guys have gone soft and don't care about losing to Michigan 3 years in a row, and you hatch a plot to get the coach investigated by the NCAA and it works, and you get him suspended for half the year and you still can't win. If you guys are content with that all winter, okay, cool. You're an Ohio State fan. I don't care.
Talk about wet dreams. Had it been after what Michigan endured in 2020, leading into 2021, Ohio State just played in a national championship game. Had I said Ohio State is going to enter this game 3 consecutive years with 11 wins, they will have taken the number 1 team, Georgia, to a 1-point game in the playoffs. They will have won a Rose Bowl. They will have done all these things that they continue to do going back to Jim Tressel, but Michigan will have won the 2 Big Ten championships and have multiple score wins in the series. That's just inconceivable to me, thinking about where we were off season of 2021.
I know. I mean, what Michigan did at the end of the COVID year is the greatest strategic retreat since Dunkirk. I mean, using COVID as a cover. Yeah, did we have guys sick? Sure, man, but come on. Well, I mean, I'm not into BS. We all know Michigan used that as an excuse to get out of getting its face caved in on national TV, okay, against a bunch of scrubs. And that would have gotten Jimmy fired. And you know what? I applaud them for it, okay? He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day, you know? I mean, there's no point in sitting there going up against Santa Ana if there's a back door. Get the hell out of there and fight him again when the odds are better in your favor, all right? So, I mean, Dunkirk saved Western civilization. I mean, if they just stood there, the principal thing was to sit there and fight. No, the dumb thing was to sit there and die. Okay. And they would have. They were going to sit there and die. And that was the end of the Allied Army a good 6 months before the U.S. would get into the war. Okay. With Pearl Harbor. So that was the greatest strategic retreat in human history. And the second greatest, and the greatest since then, is what Michigan football did in the COVID year, getting the hell out of that season, that game, and everything else, getting an early start on rebooting everything and starting all over again. The results speak for themselves.
Steve, if I was here with any other guest of mine, I would be coddling them right now leading into this next comment. But considering that you take far harsher and more meaningful bullets during your day job, I know that you're up to this. Uncle Rico says Michigan cheated the last 2.5 years. Someone please remind Steve he's completely unhinged.
First of all, I love being called Uncle Rico. Secondly, your own coaches said you switched the signals last year, dumbass. You switched the signals and you lost worse. You lost worse. What's the signal for tackle Donovan Edwards? Tackle that guy. What's the signal for that, do you think? What's the signal for stop crashing on the quarterback? What's the signal for that? What's the signal for, oh, wow, they're in cover 0 every single play. I wonder what I will do. Get out of here, man. Save that stuff for the Ozone Bucknuts forum where you guys jerk each other off with IQs less than 14. You're going to come at me. Going to come at me? Come a lot stronger and smarter than that, brother. A lot stronger and smarter than that.
Okay, I will attempt to do that, but we're going to contain this portion of the conversation because we want to make this about what's going on in terms of historically and in the game on Saturday. So we could talk about this for hours. Steve, okay. Cheating, there is only one purpose to cheat, correct? That is to change the result of the contest.
Right. Like when Ryan Day had Don Brown signals in 2018 and 2019, that was to change the result of the contest. Correct.
And we understand that stealing those signs game day is fine. It's within the rules to do that. But to do what Michigan is not just alleged to do, and whether Connor Stalions worked on his own on this and was a rogue entity in doing this, that's what needs to be determined. To me, this is all about this Jim Harbaugh. What
rule did they break, Mark? What rule? What rule is it that they broke?
The 1994 rule.
Yeah. How does that rule define scout or scouting, Mark? I'll answer for you. It doesn't. It doesn't define who that is. It doesn't define what either of those terms are.
Well, if you're gaining information from an outside source, they become then kind of a extension of your staff.
You tell me, we're friends. You tell me about a scoop that you know happened at Ohio State practice. I break that friendship because I want to win this Saturday so bad. All right. And I put it on Twitter or I put it in the DM of a Michigan coach. Am I a scout now?
Is it going to matter to you whether Jim Harbaugh had knowledge?
No, I don't care about the whole thing. I don't think any rule, I don't think you can prove a single rule was broken. I don't. The rule does not define scout. The rule does not define scouting. And by the way, as you said, stealing. I love what did Harlan Barnett say yesterday or Saturday? Indiana stole our signals. Then he had to correct himself. Well, they did it the right way. So we're arguing about a method of doing something that is not illegal. A method.
Yes.
A method of doing something that is not illegal. A method. Method. By the way, when you turn in the scouting video according to Big Ten rules, it must include a sideline view. So I guess if you want to stand there with your damn phone 30 feet up in the stands, I did that, by the way, at the Michigan-Purdue game, okay? I'd rather just sit there and watch the coaches film and zoom in and hit pause whenever I want and just do it like that. But, okay, cool. I mean, we're talking about a method of something that has not been determined, that is not even against the rules. It is not against the rules to steal signs. It is against the rule to advance scout, but the purpose of that was for budgetary purposes.
Yes.
The rule does not determine what is a scout or define what scouting actually is. Doesn't define that if you hired somebody from outside the program to go, is that a scout? I mean, why hasn't the NCAA called Dave Portnoy? He went to the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, sat right there at across from the Ohio State bench, and filmed their signals and put it on Twitter to 3 million people. Why isn't he a scout now?
Okay, anybody who's reasonable about this understands that, yes, there's nothing ethically or morally wrong about advanced scouting. It's done in Major League Baseball, the NFL, every sport, all the time. But it was done to level the playing field among these schools because not everybody is big time and can afford this. But regardless, the rules were broken.
Which
now,
rules?
to what extent? Yeah.
Mark, I've already asked you, how does that rule define scouting or scout? What does that rule say is scouting or scout? You can't tell me.
Gaining
it doesn't
information.
say, Mark. It doesn't say it doesn't define its own terms. It doesn't define its own terms. It just doesn't.
Regardless of the level or sophistication of the information, I would think we could both agree that if someone goes to a game, even if they don't know what they're watching, and they provide me with information on the other team that my team is going to be playing, that's scouting.
Okay. That might be our subjective opinion. What kind of a rule requires subjective opinions?
Well, the NCAA is investigating this for a reason, and Jim Harbaugh was suspended for 3 games for a reason that was obviously justified to some extent because they accepted it after he served one of those games.
Yeah, I don't agree with them accepting it. They're a bunch of wimps and they rolled over for nothing. There's no way. There's not another school of Michigan stature whose coach would have missed half the season without one single damn NCAA letter of inquiry. We still haven't gotten a single one. Nothing. Not even for Burgergate. Not a single NCAA letter of inquiry. Will Wade coach for 3 years after making a strong-ass offer on wiretaps to the FBI? Get the bleep out of here with all this. None. This has no integrity, none whatsoever, and none of it does. This is just all a freaking crock, and a lot of it is because the guy has gone out there and talked about revenue sharing and everything else. That's why. That's what this is about.
Well, that's why the NCAA doesn't like him.
Exactly. That's why. And
maybe the University of Michigan, being a liberal institution, doesn't like him for other reasons.
I agree. I completely agree with that too. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the guy's doing pro-life banquets in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I would imagine that's not real popular with a lot of the faculty there. Showing American Sniper on the campus of a university whose president is getting overrun by, gays for Hamas on his campus. Yeah, I would agree that there are a couple reasons there he's probably not pretty popular, other than winning a crap ton of games.
You can sell me on the NCAA angle, but it's difficult to sell me on the Big Ten angle when it is one of its 2 largest entities.
Oh, dude, Jim Delaney ruined us with the NCAA over freaking StretchGate. I mean, this is a new president who's got 13 schools whining and crying because they're getting their asses kicked.
Didn't Ohio State kick all those asses for 20 years?
Yeah. And, Jim Tressel's doing cars and tattoos. Nobody called Jim Delaney and said, we have to stop this. Nobody did. Weird.
Ross says, no freaking coach, OC, and DC call all the plays. This is a wish, not a reality. Harbaugh coaches all week, just not at noon. Get off it, Michigan, man.
Listen, I will back off. If you guys are okay losing to Michigan 3 years in a row, including when they don't have a coach, then by golly, I will take that. We did break you, because that ain't the Ohio State that I remember, man. That ain't Earl Bruce getting canned with a winning record against Bo, for goodness sakes. You guys, you know what? Now I can remember. This is Gene talking about, well, if we can't play the playoffs outdoors. It's cold in December. We had the flu. It snowed. Okay. Maybe you really are a different Ohio State then. I'll defer to you guys. If you guys are okay losing 3 in a row, including to a team with no coach, okay, cool. It's your program. Do what you want with it. I don't care.
Jim Harbaugh lost 5 consecutive games to Ohio
I
State.
wanted his ass fired too, Mark, because I actually have standards. Yeah.
You understand, though, that's not an automatic firing. You understand the other side of that argument is the guy's doing everything else right.
Okay. It's you guys at school. I mean, from my perspective, I think there's a lot of guys with motor functions and IQs above 45 who could probably win 9 games at Ohio State every year just by showing up and being very discreet with what they do with their wallet and zipper around other people. But if that's not the case, okay, cool.
And a lot of Ohio State fans agree with you. Yeah. All right. It was not my intent with these comments and questions, folks, for us to go through a lot of this, but we'll read them all.
I love this. This is much more fun than what I do for a living.
I know you have to deal with real life.
I know the real stuff is that this is much better. This means nothing. It's utterly meaningless. It doesn't matter at all. Really. It doesn't. It's just
folks,
fun.
And there have been a number of people that have come to me, commented and so forth about you being unhinged. If I had to deal with what you have to deal with on a daily basis during the day, I would be unhinged. Because
this is not
that stuff really means something.
I can show you me unhinged, and this is not it. I'm just having fun.
Yeah, I know that. Uncle Rico, can we all agree the biggest mistake Hunter Stallions made was not scouting TCU?
Actually, we did scout TCU. That's not true. We did.
Dominic with the Go Blue, thank you for the contribution. We appreciate that. Ferris coming in with which school brings more value to the Big Ten, Ohio State or Michigan?
Probably pretty even, I would imagine. I mean, you're talking about Ohio State or Alabama every year is the biggest TV draw, and then Michigan's after that. Ohio State's the biggest athletic department in the country, or Texas every year, and then Michigan's after that. Michigan has the largest alumni body in the world. Ohio State, because they're until the Blue Jackets came in, and even then it's still hockey. It's it's the largest TV market in the country to not have any of the big 3 pro sports. And so you're talking about maybe the most lucrative. We have the largest alumni base. You might have the most lucrative booster base. I think I've heard it that Ohio State brings in a third of the Big Ten's revenue, Michigan the other third, and all the other teams bring in the third. That'll change a little bit when USC comes in, but I think they're probably pretty equal where that's concerned.
I can't argue that. David, why fire Stallions if he did nothing wrong?
They did not fire Connor Stallions. He quit. He resigned.
You don't think that was a forced fire?
No, in fact, I know it wasn't for a fact.
All right, folks, let's get back on track here. Uncle Rico, Mark, this is honestly embarrassing. Keel, I'm only reading this because...
people are paying you for these, right?
Yes, they are paying.
Oh, then I don't care. I hope, dude, cash the check, man. I don't give a rip. Go ahead.
I don't know if it's worth the time. It's not like they're throwing $50 at me here for this. So I don't know that the dollar amount's worth the time. Maybe I needed to be more specific about a dollar limit here. T-Snow asked Homer Simpson, what did he think about Tressel and tattoos, fair punishment? I am assuming. Rose,
no,
do you have anything?
I don't care. As long as the players aren't criminals, I really don't care what gifts they get. I don't. It's a dangerous sport. Any moment you're risking life or limb. And these universities and the NCAA and the networks are making billions of dollars. I don't care. I don't.
All right, back to a reasonable comment about the rivalry here from Rose. I'm old enough to remember when Steve was so dejected he could not bring himself to watch each year he went to the movies. I can't wait to get back to that.
Yeah, that happened one year, 2021. Yes. After 2019, I told you, I can't do it anymore. I'm humiliated. And beyond even getting our rear ends kicked, I mentioned it earlier, the behavior in that pile with J.K. Dobbins and some of the stuff that was just not Michigan football. And I just told you then, until they win, I won't watch again. And I kept my word. We didn't play in 2020. In 2021, I did. I went and saw Kong versus Godzilla, came back and watched the game on DVR. Last year, I did watch the game live. That's the first Michigan-Ohio State game live I've watched since 2019.
Steve, you can let me know what you think of this theory. I think that much of this, at the core of the psychology of the typical fan, especially when it comes to college football, and because of the fervency, is this: there's too much identity, we would say politics, but identity with these teams, too much attachment.
Sure.
You know, like if Urban Meyer runs amok and does something stupid like he has in the past, you know, people shoot all sorts of comments at me. I throw up my hands and say, I'm not responsible for the man. Yes, I'll defend his coaching record, but this is no indictment on my personal integrity or character or value as a person. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't. It's just fun. I mean, listen, obviously we're doing rivalry week trolling here for the last few minutes, but let's just be a couple guys named Mark and Steve here and be serious for a second. Other than my faith and my family, nothing in my life has brought me more joy since I was a kid than Michigan football. When we moved to Michigan when I was 10 years old was the week of the Michigan-Ohio State game in 1983. So that's Keith Byers and Mike Tomczak against Steve Smith and Rick Rogers, and I just fell in love with the helmet. And as I've talked about in other venues, I didn't have the greatest childhood growing up. I looked for escapes, and Michigan football provided a lot of those escapes and a lot of those opportunities to just get away from real life. And I love the team. I'm a total Walmart Wolverine. Culturally, I've got much more in common with you all right, which is why I'm often very frustrated. You're not going to find me criticizing Ohio State for doing what it takes to win. You're going to find me criticizing Michigan for not doing what it takes to win. My man cave is painted maize and blue, but it's just fun. That's all. I mean, if Michigan loses Saturday, I'll be devastated the rest of the day, and then I'll get up the next day and go to see a movie or something and go on with my life. It's not my whole life. It's just fun.
Amen, brother. I could say a whole lot there, but I'm here all day, every day. So I will do that at a later date because we only have about 5 or so minutes with you. So let's get through this mess here. The Michigan man does say, give him hell, Steve. We love you, brother.
Thank you. Go Blue. Happy to do it. I'm happy to be the man in the arena. I love it. The more outnumbered I am, the more fun it is to me.
Ryan says, is it advanced scouting to trade signs with other coaches that played a team prior?
Nah, that's what Michigan alleges happened before the Big Ten championship game last year. That Ohio State directly gave our signs and signals to Purdue. I mean, that seems like an example of advanced scouting to me. But again, that would be subjective because the rule does not define who is a scout, nor does it even strictly define what the term scouting is. And given how many years ago the rule was written and it was nearly repealed in 2021, how much more abundant technology is today, virtually anybody sitting in the stands who's a fan of another program with a phone could be, in some context, a scout.
Buckeye Mike, if Michigan did not do anything wrong, why didn't they deny the allegations? Instead, they deflect. Jim Harbaugh got urban punishment in 2018.
I can't answer for Michigan. I've been very disappointed in the way that they have reacted. It is the most sanctimonious thing to go out and suspend your coach not once or twice without one single NCAA letter of inquiry. I've just never heard of such a thing. And frankly, I'm just deeply disappointed at that administration. We need to think more like when E. Gordon Gee once said, fire Jim Tressel. I mean, I hope he doesn't fire me. Exactly. Yes.
The Los Angeles says, guys, we struggled with Maryland last year, meaning Michigan at home, and we played Penn State at Penn State. This whole excuse we lost because you guys cheating is getting did how about the coaches we got in 2020 and fired Don Brown and got better?
I mean, look at this. Look at this year, for example. So they didn't do this in any of the non-conference games. Michigan didn't cover the spreads in any of the non-conference games. You look at the Big Ten games. Rutgers huddled. You look at Michigan State huddled. You look at Minnesota huddled. Nebraska huddled. Somebody we played had a new OC that week, so everything was different. I
think that was Indiana, right?
Yeah, that was right. Indiana. Yeah. It had a new OC, so everything was different when we played them. You guys tell me what the signal is for tackle Donovan Edwards. You tell me what it is, because I hope we steal it again for Saturday.
All right. Well, I'm not going to go in that direction anymore because I've had my say on here for a month. And for as much as I would like to dig into it, because I do have some retorts, I do want to ask you basically. So we got a bunch of super chats, but I want to basically ask you, size up the game, size up the key matchups. Who and what are the most important elements of this game on Saturday?
I think the most important factor, if you look at Kyle McCord, he is top 10 in the country in QBR in a clean pocket. He's outside the top 100 in the country when he's under pressure in QBR. JJ is banged up, and Michigan's pass pro has not been great the last 2 weeks in a row, one guy in particular. So, and last week we had to play last week against Maryland. We had to play 3 different offensive line combinations in one game because of guys that were banged up and injured, either going into that game or during that game. So I really think it comes down to whoever can do a better job of protecting their quarterback or not needing to. I really do. And whoever does that, I think will win.
This Ohio State season has gone pretty much the way I expected in regards to not necessarily wins and losses, because I thought they would lose a game before now. But in terms of the trajectory, I was trusting Jim Knowles. I was trusting the defense to come together. I was trusting a running back to step up and be a superstar, not necessarily Travion Henderson. I thought it might be Dallin Hayden, and that the offense would progress. And this would be the 5th best team at the beginning of the country, but I did pick them to win a national championship. Now, all of that goes up in smoke if they can't get it done in Ann Arbor. And I do think Michigan should be the favorite. They have been the more dominant team, but I am more confident in Ohio State today than I have been all season.
I respect your opinion. I can't think of, it's not typical for a fan to get less confident about his team before their biggest game of the year, So, I think either Ohio State wins or Michigan will win comfortably. I think either all this energy and angst within the Michigan program gets channeled on Saturday, or you're beginning to see just the level of pressure and distraction just ends up being their undoing. And I'm not close enough to the team to know which one it will be. I think either Michigan wins, similar to what we've seen the last 2 years, or Ohio State wins. I do not see that this will be a back and forth game and Michigan pulls it out at the end. I think that Michigan will either, if it'll be like 2018, maybe not that lopsided because Michigan's not that explosive offensively, but similar to the last 2 years. Or I think it'll be a game that that Ohio State will win and was kind of semi in control the entire way. I don't think it'll be like Ohio State, Notre Dame, for example. I don't. Because I can't tell, and I don't know. I'm not close enough to the team. I can't psychoanalyze people from afar, So who knows what a bunch of 18 to 21-year-olds are going to do, especially without their head coach. Are they able to emotionally channel all of that energy like in 2021? Or is this kind of like 2007, where that team had a lot of injuries and distractions and is Lloyd Cargill to retire and everything else, and then eventually it just kind of, imploded, and Tressel knew he could just run Beanie Wells all day long and not even try to throw. I'm really mystified at what will happen on Saturday. I really don't know, because I think a lot of it is up here within the psyche of the Michigan locker room.
Ohio State fans are known for making excuses, and maybe that just comes with the territory of playing in more big games than pretty much anybody in the country outside of Alabama for a long period of time and losing a lot of those games. Are you going to feel as though you are validated in making an excuse, a reasonable excuse, if Michigan loses because Harbaugh's absent?
You know me well enough to know I'm not an excuse guy as a general rule. It's got to be pretty egregious. I think in all the years you've known me, about the only time you've ever heard me truly, for example, lose it and blame officiating is the infamy in 2016 in Columbus. It's got to be to that kind of a level to me. I'm sure Jimmy is worth something on the sidelines, but if JJ is truly banged up, then I don't know what difference that would have made having him on the sidelines. And when I say truly banged up, meaning, like needing like off-season surgery and, or like 3 weeks of rest and kind of, playing it out like Chad Henne was his senior year, for example, something like that, So I'm just not a guy that I'm not into excuses as a general rule. I didn't get where I'm at making excuses. I just not, it's got to be pretty egregious for me to do it.
Lemansky says, thanks for sharing the personal, Steve. Thanks for sending Bump Elliott to Iowa City.
That's true. We did. And Bump hired Hayden Fry and Tom Davis. And yeah, Bump was a great athletic director at Iowa. He was. Good dude too. Very good dude. Nice guy.
Stray Dog. Last time the team up north was a favorite against Ohio State, we put 62 on them. Fond memories. Steve, don't have a heart attack. Need you for your day job.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Nice.
The Lost Angels, I meant Michigan lost to TCU. Okay, Moose says, Steve spitting facts. People don't like hearing the truth. I bet Michigan ends up getting a fine and maybe loses some scholarships.
I think that matter will go to court. I think the Michigan and NCAA, I honestly, I don't believe the NCAA is going to exist 24 months from now. I don't.
24 months.
I don't. Maybe 36 at the most.
Sure.
I think that court case on NIL getting standing was the equivalent of when USC and UCLA announced they were leaving the Pac-12. Everybody knew the Pac-12 was over. They just didn't know how long it would take to get to that point. Okay. And what did it take? About 24 months. I think actually, no, 18 months. That case, that NIL case, is the end of the NCAA.
Wasn't the original intent of the NCAA to be a leadership body that not only just penalizes and chases, hearsay and rumors that they're given, but actually to lead the sport, to lead athletics? Yes.
And I think that's part of what the NCAA's vigor where Michigan is concerned. You have a politician running it now, needs political capital. They've been running to Washington, to Congress for the last 3 years, begging them to save them, and Congress keeps saying no. If you can get a scalp like a Michigan, maybe you get the attention of some congressmen and senators. But I think I think that's why Michigan settled with the Big Ten last week. I think that was an attempt to say, all right, we can't afford to fight a two-front war. Michigan and the NCAA is going to court.
Rooted Rotor says, are Ryan Day and Greg Schiano advanced scouts since they stole Michigan signs and gave them to Purdue?
That's all up for debate. What is a scout and what is scouting? And Matt Rule talking about, well, we had a team, we had a tough schedule. We had a team scout us. Dude, honestly, what a bunch of pussies. I'm sorry. If I was a fan of that school and my coach is claiming we lost 52-7 because somebody was advanced scouting us, I'd be embarrassed. Tom Osborne, I promise, embarrassed. Bob Devaney would come back from the grave and he would throat punch you and say, you're not worthy of this job. Get out of here. That's just absolutely embarrassing. That's Michigan giving away Coke Zeros for tickets level of embarrassment. Stop. It's cringe. What a bunch of wimps. Goodness.
Cody says, I agree that as a Michigan fan, I've never hated Ohio State as much as I hate them now. After all these allegations, I feel a lot like they do now.
Yeah, I don't think that's subsiding anytime soon. I think if we bring this full circle here to wrap it up, the historic stakes will not be the same after this year. But I think in the immediate aftermath, the level of emotional vitriol is going to be worse.
I agree. Regardless of the result, the vitriol's at an all-time high, or at least within social media context that we can see it constantly.
Yep.
One last comment here from Dustin. We appreciate it, Dustin. Loving this discourse. Love both of you guys' content and takes. My go-to shows every season as a Michigan fan. Go Blue. Say it, Mark. I just did. You lured me into it. There it is.
Nice.
Money talks.
Very
All
nice.
right. And when I don't read ahead of what I'm about to read, I sometimes get duped. There it is. Steve Deace, Michigan Podcast, the Bigger 10. They are must listens, watches, whatever you do with it. Major media outlets in terms of audio platforms as well, in addition to right here on YouTube. Steve, I wish and want and hope for and pray, most importantly, for the best in all facets of your life, except noon Eastern time on Saturday.
Brother, the feeling is mutual. You know that.
Thank you, Steve. You have a great rest of your week, man.
Thank you. Take care. God
Great
bless.
to see
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Thanksgiving to you.
Yeah.
All right. Great stuff from the incomparable Steve Deace. The good that man does on a daily basis in this world and the criticism he takes for it. Wow. So we appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football, and thank you so much for your participation, even the trolling. We've got so much else going on concerning this game. So keep in mind, the Big Ten Live show is coming up tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So in just an hour, we will have, again, the Big Ten Live show right here. I don't know what I'm going to say, what I'm going to talk about, who's going to be on, but you will be on if you call the channel. So 6 p.m. Eastern time, the Big Ten Live show. John D'Adamo and the Michigan Live show is coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday's a big day, folks. Ohio State Buckeyes live at 11 a.m. Eastern time on the Buckeyes channel. Then we will have Zach Smith here at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. So here's the lineup. There we got John D'Adamo, Tuesday, Michigan live, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Meanwhile, I'm going to be here with the playoff results and the playoff rankings, I should say. The watch party is here at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday when that gets unveiled. But head on over to Michigan Live with John Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Buckeyes Live Wednesday at 11 on the Ohio State channel. And again, Zach Smith, that's coming up Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm still trying to figure out what we're going to do on Saturday. So for sure, I will be here live after the game, taking your calls, your comments, your questions, all of it. Whatever you want to throw at me, I will be here as soon as the clock strikes 00, Ohio State, Michigan. And then we will turn it over to John for Michigan postgame after that. But on all the various channels, and Best Damn Media will do their Ohio State postgame on our Buckeyes channel. But I will be here after the game. And I'm thinking about doing a pregame show. We will give that some thought. I'll probably check in at halftime. Why not? We'll check in at halftime as well, live with you. So be here for that. We are still covering all of college football. Despite all of that with Ohio State and Michigan, we are covering all of college football. I just released a video on the Syracuse head coaching vacancy with Dino Babers fired on Sunday. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. The Big Ten Live Show is coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern Time right here on the main channel. See you then. Go to games all the time, or you've got your heart set on that one huge matchup, go to ticketsmarter.com to save big. TicketSmarter technology gives you the best competitive prices on the secondary market. Your purchase price is safe and guaranteed. Use promo code BIG, B-I-G, to get $10 off of any purchase of at least $100, or the promo code BIG20, BIG20, to get $20 off of any purchase of at least $300. Use the promo code as many times as you'd like. There is no limit. Get in the game with ticketsmarter.com or the TicketSmarter mobile app. Think smarter, Ticket Smarter.